Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ron Swallow.
I'm Ed Greer, and today we are going to talk about one of those hot button issues. Oh
Yeah.
God, the aggregators are going to get on us. Oh no!
Yeah.
It's a hot button issue. We're going to talk about diversity, but more specifically, is business oriented diversity the greatest? Discuss.
Well, the concept here is I'm specifically thinking about Disney, in that they have now put out a couple of female-led movies. We have Shang-Chi coming up, and they're doing their best. We're going to have a Black Captain America. He is going to be Captain America in the movies now, not just on a TV show. So, I mean, they're doing their best to put forth diversity. Even they're even having gay people in the movies. It's crazy.
Dude, when I saw a gay person in Jungle Cruise, I knew it was serious business. I was like, whoa, they're not playing around.
Yeah.
They're not playing around with Kentucky right now. They're just like, hey, get on the train. If you don't like it, peace.
Because we got enough Jungle Cruise then.
There's enough other money coming in from all sorts of people. So don't trip. Yeah, I thought it was really kind of commendable, especially in that time frame that movie takes place in. I'm just like, damn, that dude's life must have sucked. Even in a Disney movie, that guy's life sucked a little bit. Good thing he was rich and posh.
Yes, absolutely. But that's just, and obviously they're still moving forward on the LGBTQ ones. We don't have a clearly gay hero yet. I mean, I guess they're arguing that Loki is, but but they're not showing that.
Also, just like straight up, I think it's swept under the rug a lot is like real Latin representation that is not on the El Rey network. God bless Robert Rodriguez, but he's doing a yeoman's job getting Latin people on the screen. And a lot, it's we talk to Hector Navarro all the time, not to name drop him, but it's like it's embarrassing how few Asian and Latin heroes and actual characters that mean anything to the story that there are.
And supposedly America Chavez is going to have some roles coming up in major movies as well. Plus we have Miss Marvel.
Kamala Khan.
Yeah. Kamala Khan coming up. So those are all things that are happening, and they're happening with a purpose. And that purpose is to have more diverse roles for people, but also it's to sell tickets to, diverse groups of people. And it's so interesting because does it matter if diversity gets created if it comes from people who just want to make money from that diversity? Does that matter? Or is the positivity that comes from that overwhelm the idea of it being for profit?
I mean, I think it's an interesting question just because I think a lot of people have sort of this weird misapprehension that every single decision, every single time any company does anything is to make money. You know what I mean? Like there's not really, I think there's a lot of people who think that comic book companies are failing now, even though the business is, I mean, by all accounts, is as strong as it's ever been. It is on life support all the time. That's comics. You know what I'm saying? It's like that meme of like James Franco about to fall and get hung for the billionth time. And he's like, hey, he's looking at the other person next to him. First time. Every time I read one of these 17, 18-year-old people talk about comics are dead, manga's taking over, it's just like, that's been what everybody said since I was a kid. Yep. And, there's somebody older than me in the comic book shop who remembers it when they were a kid. Comic books has been on life support forever. It's still, but nowadays it's on life support, but also a great IP mine for movies and television, which makes it an important thing that will never die now. Comic books are going to exist forever now.
Yeah, they're lost leaders at this point. Like if you're not making money off of the comics, you're making money off of the movies, and so who cares?
Hmm. So I think that's a big one, because like people talking about like, well, that's the thing. A lot of people will be like, okay, since they're lost leaders, you can do stuff like virtue signal that now you have this XYZ Puerto Rican character, this gay ambidextrous, you know, this, that, the other, because it's just like it doesn't matter, and they're not trying to contribute to comics history and stuff. And there's a whole dark web on YouTube right now that I hope we're not aggregated with. That's a bunch of motherfuckers talking about how they hate Brie Larson and how Captain Marvel's overpowered. Captain Marvel is overpowered and shitty, and America Chavez sucks for the same sort of reasons. And Naomi from DC sucks, and Riri, the Ironheart, she sucks. Shuri sucks. Black Panther's an overrated movie. There's just this whole cadre of internet. It's almost like this cottage industry dedicated to shitting on companies for making Batman black or making Tim Drake bisexual, and it just, that's odd to me. That to me says that there's some kind of culture war under this. Oh, I just love comics. Stop changing my comics. There's that tribe who are just old
Yeah.
people basically, and then there's these guys who are between 17 and 45, edgelord son bitches who are just like, nah, or probably 17 and 65 if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
that are just like, nah, I don't know. He kissed a guy. Oh no, oh Batman. Oh no. They're just reacting like children over and over and over again to these changes to their characters who are different than whenever they were kids. Whatever, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
and then there's this
They're
sort of,
reacting like
you know,
middle schoolers. Yeah,
yeah.
children don't care about that stuff. But remember in middle school when everything was just gross
Mm.
and stupid and you didn't like it? That's what they're acting like. Like, oh no, gross to kiss the boy. Oh, gross. You only kiss girls. I don't even really like kissing girls either, but at least you know what I mean? It's just like,
Right.
oh yeah, these people are exhausting. One. But two, I think they're getting left behind. I feel like this rise in this the rise in diversity in multiple media, from TV to movies to cartoons,
Hmm.
comics, all of that encompassing media. This diversity drive is just showing where the future is going to be, because we're going to have a very diverse population. We have a diverse population now, but it's going to be even more diverse when we're all hanging out together, having kids, and changing the way things work, which is great. It's kind of how it should work. And I like the idea. At some point, I think we've talked about this before. I'm hoping at some point that when someone's gay or whatever in a movie, that it doesn't matter. It's not about them being gay or Latino or whatever it is. It's just that they're the characters that they are, and we don't have to think about this stuff.
Oh, it's interesting because like if you relate it to comics and all that jazz, it's like people have been arguing forever that there wasn't an actual market for diverse characters. So why are you even doing that? That was like the
Yeah.
first shot across the bow that I heard back when I was a kid. Was like, there's not a bunch of freaking black characters because there's not a bunch of. Do you see a bunch of black people in this comic book store right now, brother? You know, the bunch of
Yes,
conversations like
in
that.
Iowa, we don't.
You
You're
know,
right.
you know what I mean? Well, in Kansas City, Missouri, it happened a lot too. But the bottom line was like it was like having in those days at least,
Yeah.
and it was like this constant like it was always a weird throw in to have a character that wasn't white. It was always like this, like, oh, look at that, that's weird, instead of being like representative of how the world was. And then and that's before I even realized that, well, these black guys like MD Bright and Dennis Cowan and Trevor Von Eden, they were black and they were drawing white character after white character after white character, and then like drawing some tertiary black characters over here in the background and shit of these white people stories this whole time, and they're just making money during a time when the only black characters you could write on were like Luke Cage or Black Lightning, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because they said there's no market, but then when there was a market, we start putting them in, and people still get mad, and that's when you know that they're not mad about the market at all. They were mad about the brown people.
Well, it's interesting as far as being mad about the brown people, or mad about chicks and stuff. I I don't want to play white devil's advocate. It's not my job. Well,
I mean, isn't that my job?
I see definitely not. I
No.
definitely think it's to use their word that they've appropriated from punk ass people on the left. They've taken it now. The right has taken it. Triggered. They are now triggered when they see the future state Batman line, for instance. Wonder Woman's Brazilian. Batman is black, the son or whatever of Lucius Fox, son, Grass. I don't give it, whatever. They see Val Zod, this presidential Superman from another dimension. They see all this stuff, and it's like, so basically, whenever you imagine the future, it doesn't have us in it. And that's exactly how black people used to feel.
Yeah.
You see how that works?
Yeah.
That's how we used to feel every time you saw a movie in the future, or as the old joke says, you saw the Jetsons, wasn't no black people. You saw the Flintstones, wasn't no black people or
Yep.
brown people. So the bottom line was, I mean, you weren't even in the past, so you damn sure ain't in the future. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was just that's an odd way to feel about yourself. And then in this way that people are looking at media now, there definitely was a white past where everything was white
Yep.
in our media for America. And I mean everything as in like at 92.5%. Don't call me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically that shifting to a whole slate of the future books are black people and women and probably some a gay Nightwing that's a woman from the future and all this. They look at all that and they're just like, ugh, I can't. That's not what I. Number one, that's not what I grew up on.
Yeah.
Number two, I've never seen anybody that I thought would ever read this. They have. They've stood
Yeah.
right next to them, but they don't see those people. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's like I think that's again, not to be devil's advocate for those people, but like I can understand how shocking it is to go from, hey, chum, let's swing on these lines and stop the Joker from poisoning the reservoir, to Tim Drake being bisexual and the Wonder Woman's from Brazil and the Batman's black and all this kind of jazz. And I just, everybody's always telling those people, well, just go read the old comics. No, read the new comics that aren't that way, because there's a bunch of them. They're
Yeah.
almost all of them aren't
Yeah.
that way.
It's a very small percentage. There's still Whitey Wonder Woman. There's still Whitey Superman, and you can read all of them, and they're still good. They're still good. There's still good runs of comics that you can read that are out right now that aren't Miles Morales. But guess what? You can also read Miles Morales, and now people who have spent their whole lives reading about heroes that don't look like them get to read about heroes that look like them, and that
But
is
Ron,
good.
why? But if there's not enough of them, why do I have to see it on my shelf in this medium where they're the loss leader for giant IP companies? Why do I have to see these people taking flyers on these books? You remember back in the days, comics would try stuff for 3 issues and be like, nobody likes this shit. They would,
Yeah.
they would try stuff. Now it's the exact same way as it ever was. They will try Save Space and Butt Plug or whatever as these two characters and say, hey man, I'm a super fresh character and I represent diversity. But those characters sucked and didn't go anywhere. So they
Yeah.
stopped it. So it's
I mean,
like
it's a bad choice to name a character butt plug. I mean, so
well,
what did they expect?
I mean, they might as well have. I'm sorry. Like those two characters were literally set up to fail and to
Yeah.
be. I almost felt like those idiot red hatters where I was like constructing conspiracy fantasy in my head, like Marvel really hates diversity, which is why they showed two diverse characters so crappily that everybody would hate them, and then it would prove that diversity sucks and nobody likes it, and they'll go
Yeah.
back to, you know what I'm saying? I did all these mental gymnastics in my head. It's like, no, they actually did. Let's talk about pandering real quick, because I hear that
Sure.
word a lot. We hear that word a lot when people talk about like diversity in comics, diversity in movies, whatever, in commercials. Why do all four of the people in this commercial got to be Asian? That's weird. I've literally seen that written out in words.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let's talk about pandering. What do you think that means? Like, not to put you on the spot. I'm not gonna like,
No, no.
you know.
It actually brings me to a a term that I hate that has been used by the right incorrectly for a long time. It's called virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
So what real virtue signaling is saying something that is good, is that is obviously good, but you are just repeating it. So like there's an article about kids being abused in a, a a private school, and then you come on and say it is wrong to abuse children. Like, no shit, dude. We all know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for pointing out things that we all know. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what virtue signaling is supposed to be. But it's turned into pointing out when something is wrong or right, uh, and you're not. What people decide is you don't really believe that. You're just saying that to look cool, and that's never what virtue signaling was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's turned into that virtue signaling. And but to me, that's kind of what pandering is. It's
Mm-hmm.
I made this gay character to prove that I can make a gay character. That's not cool. That's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's just you're pandering. You're using the worst version of virtue signaling. Put a character who's gay and don't make it a huge part of their lives beyond the fact that they're gay. Don't make You can make it part of the story for sure, and you should, but like put it in there to be a great character. Just make the character great,
Well,
and the
not
gay
just for
part
the
is just
so-called, yeah, not for the
exactly,
so-called social value of it. Just like this is
exactly.
an actual representation of life,
Yes.
rather than uh, hey, let's get on this brand new train. Well, guess what? I'll tell you something. Homosexuality's been around for a really long time.
Like
Let me tell you something.
forever.
Basically, different colored people being around each other doing stuff been around a really long time. These
Tons
aren't
of time.
new things that are foisted upon you by some changing world. These are things that always were. And if the world is changing, it is opening up to some of those experiences. Now let's talk about the part that you were talking about though, the whole like, I'll make a gay character because that's hot now or whatever. Number
Yeah.
one, I don't know how often that ever happens, but number two, I definitely have seen people with the greatest of intentions make all kind of crappy characters. It's called
Yep.
comics. Comics is a grind mill, and people are forgetting the major thing about creating characters for comics, like new characters. Like let's take this back. There's a whole bunch of videos on the internet, and every single one of them that talks about pandering and diversity and virtue signaling and right side of history and all that kind of jazz, they all say this thing of, don't make X character black that's always been white. Don't make Captain America black. Don't make Superman black. Don't make Spider-Man black. Make a new original character and push them. And they always they act like that's even possible on the level of
Yep.
Spider-Man. Like
Yep.
for you to create a character right now that's as resident as Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Flash, any of them really, is preposterous. Let's just
Yep.
start there. Now let's X that out of the equation. How preposterous that is, let's put that on the shelf. The other part of it is these fucking creators are not getting the money to create the next great super black character.
Yep.
When you create a character, you get a percentage of future shit on them now. You didn't used to. You would get a certain amount for creating them, and then they would be that place's character, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, yes, they own that character totally, and they could do whatever they want to with it. But every time they use it in these multiple media, you'll get 1/4 of a fucking cent or whatever. And that's the
Yep.
best you're gonna do. And so hopefully people do stream the stuff a billion times and those fourth of a cents add up or whatever. But that's the best you can do. So a lot of people aren't creating original characters to give to DC or Marvel in perpetuity forever so they can be crying like Ed Brubaker was when he was watching Winter Soldier on the screen. He got $48 in his pocket. He's doing
Yep.
really good, but
He's doing fine.
he
But
ain't got no
still,
money. He ain't got no money from that Winter Soldier shit. Making Bucky cool after 50 years of being a dead child, and you don't get no money for that. That's psychotic. Those
yep.
people are psychotic. The people we revere, this comics industry that everybody loves so much, those people are psychotic in
Yep.
their ways of not divvying the pie up. So bottom line, if you create a new character for those people, it's theirs forever. You see how they've done Elektra. Frank Miller had a deal with them. I create Elektra. I'm ownership of her, and when I say she's dead, she's dead. She's kicking it in comics right now because they don't give a fuck what kind of treaty they made with Frank Miller. Fuck that guy. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It doesn't matter. So I'm just saying,
Well, and it's why you got guys like Todd McFarlane and going off and making their own stuff.
of course, it's a billion times smarter than making up a character and giving it to them. So what I'm saying is, you dumb motherfuckers, if you're gonna see a black any goddamn body, they're probably gonna take over for some legacy character or something,
Yeah.
or a Latin character like homeboy that took over for
Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider or the Blue Beetle. Both of
Yeah.
those characters are interesting Latin characters who took over the legacy characters, and they're both probably the best iteration of that character to date.
Yep.
And so it's like, if you say that you don't like these old characters being taken over by these new and these embodied by these new quote unquote new types of people, diverse people, it's just like sometimes it's the exact shot in the arm some of these characters need. Sometimes it's a stupid ass experiment that fails. I don't think there'll be a black Batman in 10 years. I don't.
No.
I think this will be a little experiment of that future, and they'll have certain Elseworld stories that have certain stuff with like a black Batman or a Latin Batman or a Chinese Batman, which they've already had Asian Batman and different stuff like that. So I'm just saying it's going to be always be part of the universe, but it's not going to be like the line of Batman comics is about a black man and his friends. That's never going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can see a Black Punisher easier. Strangely enough, I think that works better.
There's a lot of characters that need to be done over as black people. Like I famously said, uh, obviously anybody like the Punisher, obviously Dirty Harry, different type of people like that.
Yeah.
If you were to flip and bounce those as black characters, then it adds a whole extra dimension to them. But also this concept that like, okay, so basically since comics don't make no money and it's all basically the company's IP mill and their way to signal to the rest of history that they're the good guys. Let's just say that that's true.
Okay.
Even if it was, I think trying new stuff and trying to get with the times is literally what monthly comics at least are about. You know what I'm saying? Back in the days when they'd be like, "Hey man, you need some solid dick." What? Oh, that was 60 slang for good information. And that's in a Iron Man comic. It's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? They're always trying to calling people bunky and shit. That shit is old as hell, but that was part of slang at one time, and they threw it in there. There's all these different things that are trying to be so timely. That's why some of the old comics read so weird because they're like 60s mentality on a lot of levels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though they're great and they
Look,
last the
man.
test of time, they're weird.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that Plastic Man is so sway. So
Dude, and just being yeah, getting back to what we do about it, as far as like talking about this stuff, I think it's really funny how mad it makes some people and how mad it makes certain black fans. There's this guy, I will not mention his name, I do not want to give him any pub. He's way bigger than us. And all he does is do the routine I did earlier. We need more new original black characters, even though the creator is going to totally get screwed and not make no damn money. And I don't read independent comics ever. All I do is worship at the altar. Because the thing is, if you think there's no black characters in comics, you just read Marvel and DC. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? There's black characters in people's creator-owned books and all
Yep.
types of independent books, image books. There are a bunch of books out there. My man Bitter Root, they just got a movie deal. The movie's going to be directed by Regina King, Sanford Green, and them.
What?
they get they all there's all types of characters outside the big two, but
Yeah.
so many of these geeks, so-called geeks, don't really like the medium of comics. They like the corporate blowjob that they will continuously give Marvel and or DC. They love to section themselves off into I'm a Marvel guy, I'm a DC guy, and blow this private weird wiener over here, and then they like to have a fight over whose wiener tastes the best of these two corporate entities they're sucking off. But a lot of these motherfuckers don't like comics. You won't catch them reading a bunch of other comics. You won't catch them doing a Kickstarter or Indiegogo for anybody's comic unless it's some comics gate bullshit that's about, yeah, we taking it back to the original old white man comics. And they want to take it back to that. You know what I mean? And I just think those people are really fucking funny. I think it's funny how many black ones there are and Asian ones there are. Like people who are just like so wanting to be part of anything in comics that they're willing to like sign off on some of the shittiest, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
ideals. Obviously, everybody who did, like Jay Lee did a cover for them fools and got castigated like he was some kind of racist. He was not. He was doing some job that he got hired to do. I don't want
Yeah.
to tar anybody with any brushes, but I'm just saying it's like there's a fine line between I want to take comics back to the old days. Comics were better a little bit back in the days, honestly. They were I think there was more craftsmanship on the average issue that went in for the level of talent that they had back in the days. I feel like there might have been a little bit more craftsmanship maybe in 80 something. But after that, we're into image, we're into everything being all weird. And right now, comics are drawn, literally drawn better than they've ever been drawn.
Yeah.
They're these
The art
people
is
are
insane.
fucking amazing at this point. This is like as good, pretty much as good as you can get. Now, sometimes it leads to the people being a little stiff. Back in the days when we were kids, like people would be like, "This is how I draw Savage Dragon." Fuck you if you don't like it. You know, there
Yeah.
wasn't all this super photo reference, super trace the background, all this type of shit. Like you can see every window in every building for 5,000 miles in that direction. Like,
Yeah.
why the fuck did you draw that? That doesn't do anything for me. That
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
immerse me in the story or anything like that. You could have just faded that out with a little scribbles. You know what I mean? That would have
Yeah.
been fine. So I don't know. It's just to me, the people who can't stand how comics are right now have a lot of reasons, like historically and like in their own experience to not like them, but they conflate them all into like if you don't like the stiffness of certain comics or the weirdness of certain new art styles that they're letting be in comics nowadays, then you can conflate that with, oh, and they also got a black dude, and then they also made Batgirl be black, and then Black Canary be then they also made Catwoman be black in the book. Like all these changes start to mount up in your head, and then all of a sudden you have some valid reason to not like all this shit when really you're just masking. I don't like all this change, and I don't like this specific change. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
Absolutely. And change scares people. It's actually kind of it's funny. I was talking to a friend who's a clinical psychologist about why people believe in conspiracy theories. Um, and a big portion of it, weirdly, is the way some of us evolved.
Mm,
We all evolved in the basic same ways, but there's different tracks, and one of those tracks is uh, a little more paranoia. Which sometimes, when you lived in the forest and you heard a creaking sound and you didn't run, you got ate by a wolf.
mhm,
So you had to be on top of like any change, for instance, any change could mean you were in danger. And some of these people, and we've evolved beyond that as well. We've evolved to a point where you could hear a crick and a noise in the bush, and you hide a little bit and look over to see if it's trouble. And then when there's no trouble, you go back to being normal because you figured out the problem.
mhm.
And some people didn't move beyond into that thing, and those people believe conspiracy theories. They're not quite as evolved. No, I'm kidding. By the way, that's not 100%. That's not 100% true, but it is a different evolution track, and part of that evolution is change means danger, and for a lot of these people, and I'm not uh, by any means forgiving them for their stupidity. But it is like when you are living a life of like of the rest of your life is like fine, right? Like you go to work, your bills are paid, you can buy a comic book whenever you feel like buying a comic book. Um, you spend all of your time worrying about other shit. And one of those things that a lot of these guys worry about is like, will I still have a legacy? Will I still be part of this country or these storytelling uh, things that I'm reading? And
Yeah.
and and here's the thing: you will be, because we all exist, and there's gonna be white characters, there's gonna be brown characters, there's gonna be all types of characters, and that's life. So it's very frustrating, but I do also get where, I mean, when I say get where, I empathize but don't sympathize with some of these people.
Well,
I
dude, I
want to,
mean that's a great way to put it, but it's like a remembrance as well. It's a
yeah,
remembrance to the way media used to be, which is totally not representative of life. Like they
yeah,
would break their asses not to show black people on screen, other than like porters and shit. And it
yeah,
was like they break their ass to make stories where you couldn't even conceivably on a polite, you know, his girl Friday type of adventure run into any black people. Why would you? That's weird. We're in
yeah.
this rarefied air. We're in a newsroom. We're all these different places where black people wouldn't be naturally. I mean, that's you know what I mean. It's just
There's
that's
no
the way the
black
story goes.
reporters.
It's like how Woody Allen's bitch ass used to do all those movies about New York. Ain't no Negroes or Puerto Ricans in the New York that you live in.
Come on.
That's weird. You
Yeah,
know
it
what I
is
mean?
super weird. You should be
So it's
more
like,
weirded out by that.
dude, it's so selective. So all I'm saying is, I think a lot of those people intrinsically feel this thing that it. I hate to call it a bad thing, but it is this knee jerk evolutionary self preservation thing because they think if given the chance, blacks and gays and this is and that's would make media all of them the way that white people used to make media all of them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? They think that they were going to do that, and but again, they overestimate how little corporate power all these thems and theys have. Even when you go all the way, I mean, like the CEO of Pepsi is like an Indian lady. Trust me, she ain't. She doesn't think like somebody in Calcutta. You know what I'm saying? She thinks
yeah,
like a corporate person. You know what I mean? And she's getting down with the business, to get down with the sickness. You know what I mean? She's not gonna do some fuck up the money thing at all ever. So
yeah,
so that's not a diverse. That's not there's nothing diverse about that. You know what I mean? So it's just I'm just thinking it's going to be a very long time. Is all I'm saying before anybody that's actually I'm super. I have a diversity is a thing that I want to make part of my working process. I want to work with more. I want my workplace to represent more of the world. Blah blah. Those people actually getting power is still a few years down the line, buddies. So
yeah.
so make your fortune while you can, losers. But no, I really think that it's this weird one of our friends, I won't say who it is on this podcast, but one of our friends said the most chilling thing to me because it had this banal evil thing to it in my mind,
Uh-oh.
frankly. It was no, it's not even bad. It's just the banality of evil.
Yeah.
He goes, I grew up benefiting from generational wealth, and I want my kid to too. Now, he didn't say this out of nowhere, because if he had said it out of nowhere, honestly, I'd be forgiving of it. He said it after we had some kind of political tete a tete about, like, basic political structure, basic, you know, what are you for type stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so he thinks that the more leftist, not liberal, the difference between a liberal and a leftist, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
So, like, the more leftist ideas, if they were ever to be put into power by liberals that are in power, it would make him not be able to give his kid money after he dies. Like there's some like that whole
Oh.
death tax bullshit that bring all this kind of jazz. I was just like, that's not a front burner political issue on any level, and you'd have to be absurdly rich for that amount to make any difference in what you can actually hand down to your kid.
Yeah.
On, I mean, not
What
make
you're
any
talking
difference, as
about
in be
involves
significant.
it has to involve over I want to say $2 million. So if you give your kids over $2 million, they start getting taxed. If you give them under $2 million, there's like no tax.
Mm.
Which
So yeah, so I'm just talking about like,
whatever.
okay, this concept that like it always goes back to this. I deserve to use society to get all this stuff, but try my damnedest not to give anything back to society.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about, like this banality of evil. It's not
Yeah.
he's not out there with a knife to people's necks in the streets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's this idea that, yeah, if left-leaning people get in power, they'll take all the rich people's money away instantly. And it's just like that's the dumbest, fakest, falsest flag I've ever seen in my whole life. Because it literally has never, ever happened. Do you understand that if rich people actually got taxed properly, there would be a literal revolution of them using their robots to kill us? If we really, if are you serious? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there would be there'd be literally blood in the streets from militias hired by Amazon to kill civilians until we take the tax law back. Sincerely, it will never happen. Our politics are run by money. So again, let's get back to it. If money is the king, no amount of virtue signaling is worth anything.
Yeah.
If money is king, pandering isn't worth anything. So why
Correct.
would anybody do it? There is no market share for being on the right side of history.
Yeah.
Disney's market share did not go up because a gay dude showed up in fucking Jungle Cruise, bro. That didn't fucking happen.
But you know
So
what did happen? Some gay people heard about it and went and gave it a chance. And maybe they didn't like the movie, and maybe they did, but they spent some money to see that movie because of the diversity. And that was a
I think it's
little
more
extra
likely.
money
I
in
think
that
it's more
company.
likely. I think it's more likely that some gay people was watching a Disney movie because everybody watches Disney movie, and someone was like, "Huh, that's kind of cool," and someone was like, "Why doesn't he get to kiss anybody?" And then someone was like, "Yeah, why isn't he the main character having sex with everybody?" And then you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it depends on the person how you took it. I don't know if it was a driving force to make anybody go purchase a ticket. It is again to me that's one of those things that's just a reflection of actual reality. The only
Yeah.
thing that's fake about that, the whole scene of that dude basically coming out to the rock, is that you would come out to the rock in 1914. That's
Correct.
weird. That's
Yeah.
like I don't think anybody would come out to the rock because if he takes it badly, you're getting some pugilism thrown on your ass back in those days. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So I think that was the only fake part of that. But I'm just saying, like I just want to get us away from not get us, but get myself away from this idea that on some level it pays to pretend to be diverse.
No.
I think it pays to hit on things where you can get a lot of the black and Latin and whatever market share over and over again because they see themselves and it's this weird world where you're the normal. Like black, I basically try to tell people what it was like to see Black Panther as a person of a certain age, and it was like if you're like 25 or something, I don't know if you got the impact of it. If you're a little older than that, I think you could see like they had never spent $1 billion from like marketing and budget of the movie. They'd never spent 300 million, $400 million trying to make $1 billion and built all that machinery around a black character.
Yeah.
Not ever. There was no point in history where that would have ever happened. That was literally that point in history and it was amazing. And you can say what you
And it
want about the
worked.
PlayStation 2 graphics at the end, and you can say what you want about this and that. The drama of it, the actual Shakespearean sort of nature of it, the story was pretty damn tight. People underestimate the impact of being able to see that black character do all that cool shit. And yes, the ending is sort of like a video game. And yes, they kind of like him better in Civil War when he was just like, I don't care. I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care. I will fuck you up. I will fuck Bucky up. I have a mission. And at the end, he has the most honor of anybody there.
Yep.
Him and Captain America, most honorable dudes in that whole movie. And they just put him over so good to where, and now that he has his own 100 million, $200 million movie, I mean, it was just astonishing to see that. They had never built such a $1 billion enterprise around a black person ever, not even close. So it just blew my mind, and like trying to relate that to a white dude who has been Harrison Ford since he's a little kid, has been, such and such character. They don't get it. Like white dudes don't get it. Some young black kids don't get it because they've had Miles Morales or whatever. But like most white dudes didn't get the impact that it had on fans who had seen Black Panther since the 60s, to see a big time, as big and as good as the white movies, frankly, budgeted feature was fucking mind blowing. And that's why people blow that movie so much. So just give them a break, because they had never seen themselves big time like that. Never in
Yeah.
history. You talk about Blade all you want. That was the Dimension Films, New Line Cinema little movie that broke out, and that's great. And he's a pioneer. I love Blade. But we talking about they put $100 million on
Yep.
this shit.
And that's
That's a
happening
whole nother level.
with Shang-Chi right now.
Mhm.
So it's a good thing. I think it should be. I don't know why we even have to have a conversation like this per se, but I think it's still an important conversation to have. Um, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens with it. I feel like we're going to get some great stories that is going to really affect people's happiness and lives. And that's what we're supposed to do in this. Like, we love making these podcasts and discussing these ideas, but we also love inspiring people and making them feel good and feel accepted. I think that's a huge thing. And I'm so excited to see Disney or whoever. I don't care who does it. I don't care why they do it per se. I'm just glad that someone is doing it.
Well, and I just want to, just on that last point as we round this out, that's the fucking point of this conversation, is to destroy this notion that it doesn't make no money to make
Yeah.
these things, to destroy this notion that there aren't any like Asian trans people who want to read comics. There's a lot of everything you think
Yep.
that doesn't exist, that doesn't like your little niche product. And if you go, well, then the sales don't buoy that out. A lot of you don't read every damn thing. There are people who read Captain America and Daredevil, and that's it. Because and they'll get signed up to maybe Comixology to read the rest of the shit. You don't know how people are consuming comics. Yes, some people are ripping off comics. Some of you, white dudes who are mad, are ripping off comics because they cost too much. So you never know how many uh, ways people can see these characters and love these characters. And sometimes people will drop a little change to see themselves or see something they're actually interested in. I personally buy mostly independent graphic novels because I'm just like, I can read the whole saga on any of the apps that will not be named for
Yep.
comics. I can read that whole saga on that shit. If I want to buy something and have it as a physical book in my home, I want it to be something that somebody made like for their fans. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like stuff
We
like
talked
all
about
the
that with Kyle a little bit, but it's important to support artists doing interesting things. So if diversity is important to you, get out there and give money to the people who are making the stuff that you want to see. Simple as
absolutely,
that.
because the thing is they have to get money, because again, there's only so much Brian Michael Bendis willing to throw away a character to DC that's
Yep.
gonna live. There's only so much that anybody's willing to do that shit. So the black IP that are out there, and that's another thing. People are kind of addicted to the big two's sheen.
Yeah.
Like they need to see, like I was saying about Black Panther as a movie, it being a big ass movie was a big deal to me. You know what I'm saying? So when people see like uh I don't know, some a Black Lightning comic, that's one thing I want to talk about real quick, because there's a lot of shit about this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This concept that like black characters don't sell pisses me the fuck off, because I have never in my lifetime seen a truly great artist be applied to a black character for more than 5 fucking minutes. And definitely not. Sometimes there'll be great artists like Trevor Von Eden, who did Black Lightning. The Black Lightning I remember was Trevor Von Eden, and all this kind of jazz. I get that. And Dennis Cowan on Power Man and Iron Fist and Hardware and all the Milestone Media. All of that is great. And Milestone Media is an independent company. They are not DC, so that's great on them. That's what actually people have been clamoring for is original black characters. You'll get them at Milestone, and it happens to be under the banner of DC, but it's an independent company. So that's all great. But like, I think a lot of people are just snobs for like the the sheen of big two comics. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The that super, and I think a lot of people need that. So like, holler at me when Jim Lee draws 12 issues of Black Panther. Then I will think that you were actually giving it a go.
Yeah.
Like Liber Mijo draws Black Panther, or Adam Hughes draws 12 issues of Black Panther. That would mean y'all are serious about this shit. They did it with Brian Stelfreeze. Recently, they finally did it. Brian Stelfreeze is a giant in the industry, and they put him on Black Panther. I was like, okay, now y'all are serious. Now y'all are serious. And I'm not saying that he's any better than Dennis Cowan, who was a huge artist that did Black Panther a little bit back in the days. I'm not saying any of that shit, but I am saying, as far as some giant sales monster of the time, put that person on it. And even Brian Stelfreeze doesn't really count as that. He's a giant in the industry. He don't guarantee a billion sales.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's just so funny to me how they almost never put the ultra hot artist on any black or minority character ever. I find it a weird pattern that Ivan Reis, who's like probably the greatest artist at DC presently, besides maybe Clayman or some of these other guys people love so much, or like those type of guys. They don't put those guys on Black Lightning. Clayman's
Yeah.
not going to draw 12 issues of Black Lightning. It's never going to happen.
As
So it's
Frank
like that.
Quietly, John, any?
Yeah, see, Frank Quietly. You're never gonna see Frank Quietly draw 12 fucking issues of Black Lightning. Or anybody black, frankly. And that's the problem. Because these are the greatest cartoonists of our time. And they're always on everything else. And I think that's the thing. It would prove to a black person like me who's seen comics from been reading comics from the back issues, at least from the 60s on up to now. I've seen comics from the 50s, 60s on up to now, and I'm conversant with them. And I'm telling you, over the course of that whole time, they never take the hottest Rob Liefeld in the 90s artist and put it on a black book. They never do it ever. And it just shows me this lack of commitment to like making these things have the best chance, the way that you make Batman have the best chance, the way that you make all these other, because Batman would sell if it had a fucking 3-year-old doing it with their fucking elbows. It would
Yeah.
sell
Same with
2
Spider-Man.
issues. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Spider-Man doesn't need your best artist. It needs a solid artist and a good storyteller.
you know what I'm saying? So it's just like that when they start doing that, the companies themselves will have proven to me as a black fan that they really care about these black characters. And I think maybe at that point, all these punks that just read Marvel and DC and that their blinders are on just Marvel, DC, and they see Jim Lee draw Black Lightning for 6 issues or whatever, and they see that the company gives a shit about these so-called diverse characters, and they'll truly get that push. But saying just create some black characters, just okay, if you create a new black character, put Jim Lee on it, put Clay Mann on it for 6 issues to get them started.
Yeah.
But they don't do that, bro. They never do that. So when you're clamoring for these companies to make up a new black character, you're basically saying have some unknown or some known write a script, give away a character to DC and them for free, and have some fucker from the steno pool come up and draw it and hope that it all works out, that it's a super fucking hit, and that guy's Steve Ditko or that guy's Jack Kirby, which could totally be. That's another thing. I hate people
Could
thinking that
happen.
there aren't any young black people that could be Jack Kirby. There are. Kari Randolph is an amazing cartoonist that a lot of people don't know. That dude's amazing. Damian Scott, amazing. People are coming up. I'm just saying, it's way less likely for the big two to create some new Black Panther, new Black Lightning. I hate that they both have black in their names.
Yeah.
To create some new character that has as much cachet as some of the older ones. So like just give people a break when they want to borrow Batman for a second to get a foothold in this idea, or do an Elseworlds where Batman is 8 feet tall and Chinese or whatever. Just let people have that fun, because there are people that are going to buy those books.
Yep.
There are people who are going to buy those books. If you don't like them, that's fine, but there are people going to buy those books and will see themselves, like you said, in them. And the other part of it is that's the way people can actually like experiment with these characters and take them far afield. You notice how most of the time these fuckers get mad when Superman does anything other than loosen a red tie over a white shirt, take off a blue suit, and fly into the sky.
Yeah.
If he does anything other than that, they're mad.
Yeah.
So, like, why not let these other diverse, angles of these characters exist so that we can get some push and pull and stretch? But so that's all I gotta say about that. It just makes me fucking sick that they find all these fake reasons to not like it and say that it shouldn't exist, to say that it's not profitable. Then just leave it the fuck alone and let it fail and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But you won't let it be because it irks you on some level that these people are on the playing field with you, that their ideas are on your playing field with you. It irks you on some level, and that sucks. And these people need to really examine that, especially the black ones and the brown ones. If you find yourself on Al Gore's internet parroting a bunch of right-wing talking points to
Yep.
your fucking followers, you need to examine what the fuck is going on in your head, man. If you're saying the same thing, these you will not replace us T-Torch motherfuckers are saying. If that's the same thing you saying is what they're saying, get your shit checked, man. Because you
Yeah.
just bought into this thing where you don't belong, and your belonging is incumbent upon you accepting that Bruce is the best and Clark is the best, and never will there be anything better than that or beyond that. And that just sucks. That's like really, I don't want to say patriarchal, but that's really whitey-archal to me.
It's a lack of culture, to be honest. You got to be able to take a step back and think out of your own box and think about other people. That's it. Just think
Yep.
about other people. And when you start thinking about other people, you can't help but enjoy diversity. You just can't. I mean, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's a relatively diverse population. Not a lot of black people in New Mexico. Tons of Native Americans.
Wait a minute, we weren't rolling around on lowrider tumbleweeds and shit.
No. There was like 5 or 6 in my school, and I was friends with a couple of them. They're great. Still friends with Walter Treadwell. I don't know if he's listening right now. Played football with that guy. Cool dude. You know what I mean? But like, and I don't know if I just got lucky because I got to live there and learn about diversity in a very simple growing up around it way. So maybe that helped me. But you have to be able to think beyond where you're looking at your town and et cetera, et cetera. You need to be able to join in, be part of the group. That doesn't erase who you are. That just enriches what you can be around.
Yeah, man. I think more people should look at like last things last. We talk about the Fast and the Furious movies. I hate that those movies are so dumb because they're such a great example of how movies are going to be in the future. It's going to be a Latina lady typing on the keyboard while a Polynesian ass dude jumps out the window and a white dude drives the helicopter and a this and a that. That's going to be movies till you die.
Yep.
So just like it and get ready. You know what I mean? And I think that I think as we progress, we could find some of the tropes that we use, like when we want to just shoot up a group of people and we don't care about it, they pick the Yakuza or they pick terrorists, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you know what type of terrorist. They don't pick the fucking IRA. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? So
I'm sorry. I'm now picturing that happening.
Like, Aisha But you know what I'm saying?
I'm a political prisoner.
What's that movie? I'm in the movie Blowback or whatever. That movie with like Tommy Lee Jones or whatever the fuck. Oh man, blow up. No, that's Brian De Palma. Anyway, I just think, yeah, we've rambled enough about this subject, but I wanted to talk about this a little bit, and you wanted to talk about it because it is frustrating to hear people talk in circles around. And maybe there are some people who are just like, there was some incisive thing you guys should have said. Drop it in the fucking comments.
Yeah,
You know what
let
I'm
us know.
saying? Hit us up on our Patreon. You can hear weird insular conversations on there as well. But that's patreon.com/, the greatest pod. So all these different ways to interact with us, tell us we're wrong, all this kind of jazz. But I have heard people basically just, again, make excuses without putting the excuse off of the table. We made an excuse for why people could be shitty about diversity, and we told you why you need to fucking get over it. I see so many people coddle just shitty low-key fascists when they're talking to them or interviewing them, and they're just coming up with all these weird talking points all the time, talking about, like, what we were saying earlier, just that this doesn't sell, and this is a virtue signal, and that is a this, and all this crap. And it's just like, I just wish comics were bigger. I wish our conception of comics was bigger than the big two and
Yeah.
legacy heroes and all these white characters that were made in 1942. I wish we would mature past that a little bit, because then I think people would see comics like the graphic novel I'm making that you could check out on our Patreon as it's being put together. I'll start putting up scripts and preliminary sketches and pieces of art for the character designs are already on there. The thing is, like, people are making stuff that isn't getting supported because it isn't that that big two, and people are breaking their asses to be part of the big two when they could do something to make generational wealth for themselves. Some of these guys drawing Batman right now, they just sit their fucking ass down and think hard and come up with the stuff that they like to draw the best, and come up with somebody that can help them with the story. They could make the next Star Wars or something.
Yep.
But instead, they're making, at most, like, $500 a page, drawing freaking some legacy characters, but that's going to be around long after they're dead. I just wish more people would see comics as this personal expression than what's the next thing Batman gonna do? What's the next thing? Because that's what gets these people thinking that there's this scarcity model. Because there's only like about 5 or 10 comic book characters that can be big at one time. So that's why they think that these black characters, what are going to replace them and all this kind of bullshit. Because when you look at just the big two, that model makes you think there's only so much space. And these Negroes are going to elbow you out of this space. Like they're trying to get a rebound. You know what I mean? And it's just this bullshit scarcity mentality, when if you just open up your mind and look at the stuff that people, even some of those shitty commentators, not the racist ones or the shitty ones, but the ones who are just like, I just want to make comics. I don't really care about Negroes. I live in Massachusetts. I like to draw comics. Some people like that are down with those fools. Bottom line, read people's comics, read the
Yeah.
world's comics, and you'll see that it isn't so much about so-called forced diversity or none of that bullshit. You'll start to see that the world is diverse, and people's comic books can be more diverse than, I hope there's a black face under the mask that's punching this guy in the face that stole from the bank for the 1,000 millionth time of comics.
Yeah.
Get past all that bullshit and you'll stop waving tiki torches around. You'll be too busy reading comics.
Exactly. I think that's a good way to end it. So, as always, thank you for listening to us talk about the different subjects we talk about here on The Greatest Pod. If you want to join our Patreon, Ed mentioned it earlier, just go to patreon.com/The Greatest Pod. You can sign up for the $5 tier that gets you extra pods. You can sign up for the $7 tier that gets you art sent directly to your mailbox. So do that and support us. And as always, thank you for supporting The Greatest Pod.